Hi, welcome to the Augmentation of Man with Kent and Renee Miller, where we are giving the future.
We're going to talk about the changes that are going to come and hopefully positive changes.
So these are channeled messages. We're going to be giving them verbatim in a PowerPoint, and that way you can see how the language comes through. We will give our interpretation, but then you have the original language where you can make your own decision as to whether or not you agree with our interpretation or you have a different one. And let me share the screen. Okay, so this starts February 1st, 2007, talking about things to come or events to come. And we're going to focus on the positive things in this video so that we have a clear understanding of what the end goal is.
They're going to start things again for the last time. And till humanity gets it right. No countries, no boundaries, no lines. New technology will come of age and bring miraculous things. But you will learn about a great magnetic flow, the key to many of these things.
So do we want to expand on the magnetic flows?
Yes, because we know no countries and no boundaries, no lines mean. So let's expand what the great magnetic flow will be a key to.
And so what we're being told is that in the future, a lot of our technology will be based on magnetics. So if we look to Tesla and what they're doing, they're talking about making energy from magnetics.
Magnetics is the key to all future creations.
And so they go on to say, in the new change, no one owns anything. It is all for everyone as the Creator intended. No lines, no boundaries. Land is for the enlightened to enjoy, a gift from the Creator, not to be misused, all enjoy, no possession, man's downfall.
Can you get along without possessions? You're going to have to learn how to get along without owning everything and controlling everything.
And so the way that I kind of interpret this is that we're going to have a great depopulation that's going to happen. And of course, this winter is going to be a real rough winter in that respect. But for the ones who are left, there's going to be a great enlightenment that occurs. And people will be able to move about the globe freely without any limitations, so that they can live in areas where they feel a vibrational resonance to that area or to its people. And that the land is for all who remain to enjoy it. And it's a gift from our Creator, not to be misused. And we're going to be taught how to reconnect with the earth again and how to interact properly with the earth.
Man used to connect with the earth, but humanity has forgotten how. So they're saying negativism will not be tolerated, and it will be dealt by the outsiders of this planet. The universal change for the enlightenment of the universe. They want to bring us into the universal brotherhood or sisterhood, however you want to look at it. So the connective tissue of the whole. We cannot stand alone. We cannot stand apart from the whole.
And they're saying that we're a small part of the sequential item of the whole, but we reflect on the ability of the whole universe. So good things. Beauty, knowing God,
The Creator,
creating self-image And in this sense, it's the higher self, and adding to the wisdom and knowledge that the higher self or the soul contains. And that becomes the focus of our purpose here.
So holding on to others means when something bad happens to you, you can't stand alone in the event, but bring others in to help you understand the event and to hold on to each other for support.
So an aura, bright and understanding. So our aura is reflected out into the field around our body, and it is reflective of our life force, and that life force also the understanding and the wisdom that we carry. So I believe what this is saying is that our aura is going to increase in intensity and reflect, the brightness will reflect the understanding that we will hold.
So there are no single entities in this world. Said no man is an island is an old verbiage. So all of our vibrations are correlated by the higher self, the higher entities, the true self. You cannot step off and be a total individual and be an island. You have to depend on each other, on your neighbors. You can't take and turn your neighbors in to others to be dealt with. You've got to come together.
And part of this is understanding the oneness. We talk about oneness, but do we really understand the oneness? And we spoke about this in the last video, is that we really won't understand it until we have that connection with the higher self once again. But the oneness is that the higher self is the director of our conscious evolution and our learning path. And once we understand that the higher self has the connection to the universal consciousness, and that we can learn how to direct that path of conscious energy unto ourselves, and that everything is connected through that, because everything is a network of conscious energy that we can access, all entities. And so when we understand that, we understand the oneness that exists in the consciousness that is within the universe and beyond. So we will also come to understand that we are all connected in our past as well. So everyone shall know each other and understand our connection in past lives, and that how everything is attached in that way.
The higher self, the gut feeling is part, I've said just part of the higher self. When you make a decision, you said, I should have gone with my gut feeling. That's part of the higher self trying to tell you the direction you should go in. Learn how to use that correctly.
So they're talking about the universal vibrational osculation or oscillations. And we actually need to look that up because there is a definition for osculation. But they're saying it's movements to go to the higher levels. So there's vibrational movements that start in the universe that are promulgating universal consciousness and trying to nudge us along in our conscious evolution. Austerity in the conscious level, so our strict path to our conscious evolution, can be transformed into opaque magnitudinal direction. So when something's opaque, it's not quite clear. You can kind of see through it like an opaque glass, like a shower glass. You can kind of see it, but it's not perfectly clear. And it gives us this large directional inclination in our own movement forward.
When man finally perceives the index of the universe, what is the index of the universe? The laws and the consequences to understand the universe. The procession of quantum quiddity will be equal to that of many other civilizations outside of this plane. Then peaceful reign will be based on this. Explain quantum quiddity.
So the procession or proceeding forward of understanding that the quantum means the large number or the largeness, and quiddity is kind of like the essence of what something is, will be equal to that of many other civilizations. So we will proceed forward with the great understanding of the essence of all things. And that understanding will be equal to that of many other civilizations. And they're talking about civilizations outside of Earth.
So it's going to take many years to bring us up to a point where we can understand races outside of our own, to reach and understand other races outside of this earth plane. So,
and as we raise our level of understanding and the wisdom, this peaceful reign comes in, and peace pervades our society as we open our minds and become less biased, and we start accepting others outside of ourselves.
yeah, others.
And we're not doing a very good job of it, right?
Others that don't look like us.
Or don't think like us. So in our society today, we are very biased against others who don't think the same, who don't belong or subscribe to the same political party that we do.
And this is irrelevant.
Yeah, but it's not helping our society. It's closing the door on open discourse and the expansion of our consciousness. So we have to remember that the diversity helps us in keeping an open mind, having open discussion and discourse, and expanding our consciousness. And so we need to start with accepting our own humanity before we can have that connection with others outside of the earth.
So the mentors replied to a question that I asked. So it will take many years for everything to happen to bring everybody to the point of understanding what we just got through explaining. And they said, because, yes, it will, because we are willing to learn. That is, Renee and I are willing to learn. Are you willing to learn?
And again, it gets back to opening the door to open discourse, free speech, and acceptance of others when we are open to learning. So if we think we know it all, we've just put the blinders on and closed the door to any new discovery that could happen. So they're telling us preparation is at hand, be bold, a new start is coming.
So we have to help the change. The ancient ones are trying to make the change, but mankind is going against what they're trying to do. We have to help them proceed with the change, a clean change. Awesome enlightenment. So old days, remembering what the old days were similar to. Not that we repeat the old days, but the similarity of tranquility in some of the old days that we can look back on.
And I think too, when they say old days come back, is they're talking about the Renaissance that existed in our past, where we were very keen to learning about new things and exploring science and exploring all that there is to explore with an open mind, and they're telling us that will come back.
Tranquility comes with learning, as we know. So understanding, coming to learning, preserve the past, it will enhance the future. That is, learning that we did in the past, it will enhance our future.
And also not letting the events of today go as far as our learning is concerned, because they're telling us that once we get through this tumultuous time, that we will spend many years going back and reflecting on the events of today and learning from it. So we're learning as we go, but we're going to learn even more in the future.
So learning, what is learning? Actually gives us knowledge, which is a learning tool. So use it, use the knowledge that you learn, the wisdom that you get from the knowledge, or you got to give it up. Because if you don't want to use it, then bequeath it to somebody who does. But you must understand this, if you don't use it, it's just verbal stupidity.
And this is exactly how it came through with the guide here. Is knowledge is just a learning tool. Use it or bequeath it, but you must understand it, or it is just verbal stupidity. So we have to get away from just regurgitating the things that we hear, all the brainwashing that's going on around us, and stop getting mad at others who have a different point of view.
But they have to communicate.
Yes.
When the others have a different point of view or not, they can't shut those down who want to communicate to understand.
And so once we can open that communication up, each person holds a different aspect of that understanding, where they're looking at it from one point of view and somebody else can look at it from another point of view, but each one fills in a different angle of that which they're looking at to give a 360-degree picture of what they are studying. So we shouldn't discredit others who have a different voice, but start to listen and open that discussion up.
So I had gotten from the mentors that Egypt is a very important point in the history of mankind. But when Egypt opens, and Egypt will open, ancient Egypt, it is time to release the knowledge. There is hidden knowledge in Egypt, and there are those that want to keep it hidden, but it will open, and it will come quickly when it does come. So it'll be almost like a sleepness will overtake the earth. And then humankind is like them, humankind laying down and then awakening all of a sudden anew, like a new dawn. In other words, they'll open their eyes that they've had closed for thousands of years.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing is that we're entering into a new paradigm, and some of these spiritual teachers are talking about how everything is going to shift in the blink of an eye. And what our guides are telling us is that all these changes are taking place and have been taking place for many years. Everything is being lined up, and we won't have that light switch flip until everything is lined up. And when that light switch flips, we will have a completely new paradigm. It will seem like everything happened in an instant, but it didn't. It's happening now as we speak, but our senses, for the most part, for most people, are unable to be able to see what is happening at this moment in time. But when it's all lined up, then we will see things radically change very suddenly. So in June of
2007.
2007, this a couple of months later.
The change in genetics will be a resistance, again, a resistance to the pollution and problems that man has created. And genetic change will be a tolerance of warmer planet. They're telling us this planet's going to get warmer, and they are creating change in our DNA slowly to tolerate this warming of the planet.
And there's several things that are warming the planet up. I've gone through notes recently and rediscovered one of the messages, and that is that we're going to be slightly closer to the sun. Our orbit is right now almost circular, and the orbit is going to change to be more oblong. It's going to become narrower and elongated. So therefore, that is going to change our distance relative to the sun. And that will cause the Earth to be warmer. We will have species of plants and animals that will disappear, and new species will be introduced to the Earth that will be a vibrational match to where the Earth is going to land. So these things are expected and predicted and a part of the plan. Our DNA is being changed on multiple levels, and part of that change is to be able to resist the pollution and all the problems that we created on Earth during this time until the Earth has been purified. And it's a genetic change to allow us to tolerate a warmer planet.
So what's changing? The total Earth is changing. Everything that humankind has done to the Earth for hundreds or even thousands of years is going to be changed. Earth is going to once again be clean. So the atmosphere of the Earth will change will help the genetic change. It will affect the resistance to tolerate atmospheric changes, which are slowly happening as we talk right now. So, and what does the atmospheric change have to do with the patterns, the wind patterns, the rain patterns, the different patterns that are changing here on Earth? And as you've noticed in the news lately, the flooding around the world, the fires around the world, the different aspects of, I want to say weather, but it encompasses much more than weather, are changing.
The climate.
The climate itself is changing.
And is predicted to change. And so, not that man is innocent in how he has taken care of the Earth, but there are certain changes that have been in the making and planned on a spiritual level.
You know, the native people, when I talk about the native people, I'm talking the people that were originally here before the white person, the different tribes, such as the Hopi and the Apache and the Comanche and the Chickasaw, these different tribes throughout this nation saw this coming. Mm-hmm. Their wise men predicted this coming. It's the outsiders of these native people who have not heard or learned from these predictions.
Now, when we talk about atmospheric changes having an impact on genetics, the gases that are in the atmosphere form the geometric template for how life forms are expressed on a given planet. So when you change the atmosphere, you're changing the geometric template for how life forms are expressed. And everything has to be a vibrational match. Our DNA is vibrationally attuned to the Earth and everything that goes on in the Earth. So therefore, if everything is connected, you have a change in the atmosphere, meaning we're being told that we're going to have some sort of gaseous change in our atmosphere around the Earth. That's going to change the geometry and the template for how we behave and how our genes are expressed and everything else. So the Earth is shifting upward in vibration, and our DNA has to attune to that. And everything else that takes place on Earth is affecting how our DNA is expressed because they attune.
Now, Mary, this was told to me 14 years ago. Not recently, but 14 years ago in 2007, that these rain patterns will change to affect the whole world. And we have to understand what's happening, because in order to increase the intellectual capacity of understanding, we have to learn what this means. We have to throw away the egotistical behavior, which has not served mankind well.
It won't be tolerated
No.
either, because we're going to have help from outside. They're not going to tolerate our egotistical
So
behavior.
this does not fit in universal concepts of intellectual singleness of mind. It does not fit. So we have to learn how to significantly understand and be able to change the way we're thinking now.
And so that singleness of mind gets back to the oneness that we talked about earlier, and how everything is connected and all these outside entities. And it's all about the sharing of universal consciousness and understanding. So when they talk about these rain patterns changing, and then it follows with a significant increase in intellectual capacity and understanding of universal phenomenon, these seem to be two disparate ideas. However, they are related, and we're going to get into that in just a minute. So this is continued from June 8th of 2007.
So the behavioral patterns of humankind must be brought forth to true identity, who humankind truly is, not who you think you are, but who you truly are.
And what our purpose is
And what our
here.
purpose is here. Those that have the correct resonance of mind will know the change, and they will survive the coming change. Those that do not have the correctness of mind will not survive the coming change.
So they're telling us a biochemical change pattern increases on those that have the ability to understand. So the ones who are looking to learn and understand and dive deeper, to grow in their level of understanding and their consciousness, there will be a change within their neurological and chemical systems of the body to enable them to process a higher level of information within the brain, within the nervous system, and that they're telling us that this directly correlates with our ability to survive these changes that are coming. And I would imagine it probably correlates to a lot of all these viruses that are floating around too.
Yeah, the 22.5% do not include mankind that want to control others, that want to have power over others. It does not include them in the 22.5%.
Because this is not going to be part of the new cycle. So as we enter a new cycle of learning, it will be based on the natural world, and it will be based on conceptual learning, and that the iron fist will no longer control others, and wars will go away. Although we have one big war coming, and probably the war to end all wars.
That's what was said after World War I or World War II.
But this one, we're being told that there is a war coming, but that in the new cycle that we will move away from the warring. And so therefore, those who've been in control, who want to exert a totalitarian control over the globe, and those who are responsible for continuously generating wars will no longer exist on Earth and will not be reincarnating back to Earth either. So they're saying, therefore, 22.5% of the population is able to reach the open level of understanding and could survive the change.
So, dramatic effect on humankind. This was given in 2007. A profound effect on the rising of an intellectual mankind. And we can see what has happened lately. The AI project, the human genome, all this is increasing the effect on intellectual mankind. But we are going to have to go beyond this to fit in the universe.
And so this genetic upgrade is going to allow us to receive information from other universal entities that will become our teachers and will allow us to process this higher level of information. And it will have a profound effect on the intellectual ability of humanity, one that will fit in with the rest of the universe.
Yeah, they say solence of ignorance, and people use that. Solence of ignorance cannot be an excuse. They will not accept that. And intellectual incompetence at this point. So, ordinances of the Universal Proclamation. A preponderance of evidence of human instability has acquiesced into a coordinated effort of many universal systems to accentuate the change of biochemical behavior, moving it forward, bringing it up to make it quicker than the biochemical change behavior and patterns, and in essence, to create a renaissance effect of perpetual sequential behavior to the forefront of universal understanding to help us understand the universal concepts of all that is. We have to give a biochemical injection, I guess you could say, or the DNA to correct our behavior so we can begin to understand the universe as it is.
So you have this, all these entities from all these different planets outside Earth and that are in physical form, but then you have all these entities of non-physical form that are all eyes on Earth, and they're seeing everything that's playing out here, from the very smallest thing in our individual lives to the biggest things that are happening across the globe. They know what's going on here on every level. And so they have realized how unstable the human race is, and that they've made a proclamation and an ordinance to bring the human entity forward in order to stabilize the behavior of humanity so that they can save humanity and save this earth. And so it's a coordinated effort of many universal systems, outside entities, different sections of the universe, to accentuate the change by genetically bringing forth the human DNA to a higher level of expression so that we have the capacity to understand intellectually at a higher level in order to preserve the human race and to bring us forward and preserve the earth.
Yeah, I know you think that's impossible right now, considering mankind's actions, but it will happen.
can you perceive the evolvement of man? This is a question that they posed to me because my background is nursing. So they asked, can you perceive the evolvement of man with the limited knowledge that you have in medical terms, considering the exposure ratios of various toxicological substances? What could be the evolvement rate without DNA restructuring as found in the human source today? So when they say human source, they're talking about our physical bodies. And how can our DNA evolve naturally, given the fact that we're living in a cesspool of chemical toxic agents? We're surrounded by chemicals, and it's not allowing the DNA to evolve forward to higher state. So there has to be outside intervention to bring our DNA forward, and they're doing it by several different means in order to bring us forward intellectually. And so what they're saying is they have to justify this by intervening and bringing us forward in these various ways, as opposed to allowing us to continue without intervention, because all the toxins that we live in are not going to allow our DNA to move forward.
Yeah. Involvement is a must for any species to survive, any species to continue, but it's all going to be at a cost.
So my question was, after they asked this, they posed this question to me, is I don't see it. I couldn't see how we could evolve without intervention because of all the toxic chemicals that are in our environment. And but then I said, a lot of it is perception too. And they said, perception, correct. So evolvement is a must for the survival of any species, but at a cost.
It's going to be a cost.
And that cost is that
we don't know what the total cost is, but it's going to be to mankind. It's going to be to our
I would
abilities.
think at least that, you know, some people are going to survive and a whole lot of people are not going to survive. Yeah. That's going to be, in my mind, that's going to be the cost that we will pay.
Yeah, that's what we think the cost is.
But that they're telling us, they're reassuring us, this is not negative, this is a positive change. So, and it's either that or humanity will implode, and we will basically commit suicide if we don't change.
Yeah, not like the dinosaurs will go away.
And they've also said that everything has to evolve to higher and higher states.
Everything.
And if it doesn't, it will self-implode. So that's the juncture we're at.
Yeah, but right animals, now. She asked a question about animals around us. Will they evolve forward? And they said, no, the animals are for our pleasure viewing and perceptual pleasure of viewing. They are not meant to evolve to a higher species, a higher plane.
Yeah, intellectually. That being said, though, like I said earlier, is that because the earth is moving up vibrationally, everything that's on the earth has to be a vibrational match. And that includes plants and animals. So therefore, you will see the extinction of many plants and animals, but yet what will come forward is an introduction of new plants and animals that will be a vibrational match to the new earth vibration. Okay, so we are going to get back to the rain patterns that we had spoken of earlier and how they relate to the rising intellect of humankind. So the guide said, ponder what I have given you to a perspective analysis of understanding the rain patterns and DNA sequential changes of pattern and numerical event. So when they talk about numerical events, everything is assigned a numerical value. So everything, even our thoughts can be, there can be a mathematical equation assigned to even our thinking process and our perception. And even in our book, the Augmentation Man, a Study in Renaissance, has an example of how mathematics can be applied to perception and what are how to discover what the true understanding is. And so when you talk about genetics also are assigned a geometry and a numerical value. So when you're raising up the genetic expression, when you're raising up the vibration, you're also creating a numerical event where you're changing the mathematics of that gene expression and that pattern. So like I said earlier, the DNA is dialed in vibrationally to the earth vibration. And when you change the earth vibration, that DNA has to acclimate and acquiesce to that new vibration.
The numerical patterns, what you're saying. So how do rain patterns change? This is the question Renee asked. How do rain patterns change relate to the DNA changes? And rain patterns are consequential. They're like a diagnostic tool for the development of various DNA change. And that's interesting because you see how rain patterns affect humanity. So DNA reacts to the vibrational trudence of each pattern, each rain pattern throughout the world. And each rain pattern is a little different than the one before. The one in Turkey is different than the one in Guam or the one in the United States, etc. So given the variances of many that are available, there are many variances. Like I said, not all rain patterns are the same throughout the world. So they work like a tuning fork where you have different levels of tuning forks. And you want to find the vibration for that particular tuning fork. So this DNA change is very important, and it's changing humanity throughout the world on different levels.
And so, like I said, our bodies and our DNA vibrationally attuned to the earth and all the events going on around the earth. The rain patterns form a ring pattern. So as the raindrops are falling and fall into the waters and what have you, you have a ring pattern that develops. And somehow our DNA is fine-tuned based on all these vibrational events that go on around us. So we have the vibration of the earth, but we also have the vibration of the rain. We have the vibration of war. Everything that is occurring has a vibration, and our DNA reacts to the vibration of each pattern. And there's many varying patterns around the globe. And it is attuning to those patterns, as strange as it seems. And so when they say that the rain patterns will change, they're directing that change, and it has something to do with our DNA attuning to that change in the rain patterns.
So variations will begin. The earth will be getting hotter or warmer.
So they go on to say, impose declaration of self-rule. This is the higher self. To begin literation. Literation is like a written word among those of consequential behavior. So consequential behavior is how I adapt to the circumstances around me. If I have an event in my life, what happens is I start reflecting on that event and evaluating that event. And as I'm evaluating it, looking at it from all these different angles, which is angular learning, I come to a final understanding of that event. And that may not happen right away, but sometimes these events take years and years to process, and we're digging up new information all the time to add to that trove of understanding that we hold. But our consequential behavior is the behavior changes based on our final analysis of that event or those events.
But taking responsibility
Okay.
for what happened in that event.
Okay.
Consequential behavior to me.
Yes. So I think what you're implying is that people who do not accept responsibility for their own actions and the events that they create, instead cast off the responsibility on someone else, where they're blaming someone else for the situation that they're in. There's no learning, there's no reflection that's happening, and no learning that's coming out of it.
There's no completion of the self.
There's no completion of understanding. And so therefore there's no consequences of learning that occur.
Right.
And so the best thing that we can do is to understand that this earth is an experiential learning field. Everything that is being presented to us is a learning lesson. So the worst thing we can do is to cast off responsibility for an event, to blame other people. The best thing we can do is to see it in the light of, this is a lesson that I created. What do I need to learn from this? To look at it from all the various angles and to expand on that understanding by way of having a discussion with others where they can shed light on different aspects of that understanding. And then we can all grow from that. So therefore, I have my events and I reflect on them and I look at them from all the various angles and I grow from it. But when I talk to you about it, you can shed light on something that I never thought of, expanding my understanding.
Yeah, and not to blame the person for the event they created, but to talk about it, converse.
As if it's a lesson, like you're in school discussing something, and move away from the blame.
Use the self-truth, which is, this back in 2014, they were telling us all this about the self-truth, the consequences of the behavior of not using the self-truth. So today we can see there are those all around us that are not taking responsibility for what they do, blaming it on others, not using the self-derived instincts that were given to mankind. They're overriding everything with the ego, which gets in the way of learning anything from the self.
But that they're telling us that we will start to move away from that behavior.
Well, they have to survive.
Yeah, and the self-accumulation to understanding is taking that understanding and assimilating it, not only at this physical level, but this is also understanding that the soul is accumulating and adding to all the other knowledge that the self holds, the higher self and soul hold, and beyond what we're able to access at this physical level. And then that a consequence will arise within where we start to see the value in these lessons, but yet we don't really understand why
Not
that
completely.
these instincts are arising within, and it's being precariously driven by unknown sources within self. So it's the higher self starts to regain control of our learning path and creating that internal drive within for us to begin to want to learn and to assimilate knowledge on a much higher level. And so many won't understand that.
Yeah, so we hope that you understood what we tried to convey in these meditations that was given to me. Ponder what you've heard and what you've seen. Look it over again and come to your own conclusion of what you feel you understand that we're trying to convey to you from our point of view. And then create your own understanding from that.
So I think just to recap on this is that we are moving away from the egotistical behavior. We need to open up discourse. We need to move away from that blame, either blaming ourselves or blaming others, and to realize that everything is a lesson for us to reflect, to grow in understanding, to look at it from all the various angles, and to move forward. We also recognize that we're going to be receiving more information that will help us technologically move in another direction using magnetics, and that the earth will be cleaned up and purified in time, that we have to understand our role for polluting the earth, and that outside interference in helping us genetically move to a higher expression in order to survive the changes that are coming, but also to survive the pollution that exists in our environment. And then beyond that, to bring us to an intellectual level where we are able to have communication with outside entities, where they will begin teaching us and bringing forth new information, but that it's at a higher level. And because of the genetic change, our neurological systems, our brain is able to process that higher level of information, and we will be able to understand it.
Okay, that was a mouthful.
That was a mouthful.
Now, I want to say thanks for being with us. We hope you understood this. Stop and think about, who are you? So have a great week. We will speak to you again soon.
And peace be with you on your journey to enlightenment. Don't forget to hit the like button and share the video. If you find that this is good information, share it with others you think would be interested in it. You can receive these videos in your email, and you can find the sign-up form on our website, verdines.com, at the bottom of each page. If you're interested in the books in the Augmentation of Man series, A Study in Renaissance, which is about our spirituality with the earth changes in the last chapter, and The Acquiescence of Humanity, which is our connection, our past connection to extraterrestrial beings, and where we're going, how we're being assimilated into the universal neighborhood. That's in The Acquiescence of Humanity. They're both available on Amazon. Take care and have a lovely day. Thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.